Greenland and the Arctic North Pole area is a kind of the canary in the coal mine. What happens here happens much faster than any other area in the world.
It's first time I see so much ice from the fjords in this spring. It goes so quick, it's melting so quick.
And we have seen throughout the last 10 years that the sea ice is disappearing. The hunters that go by dog sled in Greenland, they have experienced and seen those changes in the weather patterns, that they have been alarmed.
The weather is becoming so unpredictable. Both the weather and the sea ice and all the environment that they know are changing.
Springtime in the middle of the winter, and when we should have summer or spring, it's very cold.
The melting of the Greenland ice cap is developing in a manner that we haven't seen before, and it has great and grave consequences for the rest of the world.
I'm not old, but in so few years I have lived, it goes so fast. What will happen to the rest of the world when all this ice are melting?
It's a terrifying prospect for us all, but one man hopes it is not too late to slow or even reverse these devastating changes. His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. Patriarch Bartholomew is the head of the Orthodox Christian Church, the spiritual leader of more than 250 million people worldwide. He is called the Green Patriarch because, since first taking office in 1991, he has made the environment a vital spiritual mission. For more than a decade, he has been bringing people together to find ways that religion and science can work together to protect the earth and save the seas. He gathers scientists, theologians, government policymakers, media people, and environmentalists aboard a traveling shipboard symposium and gives them a first-hand, close-up look at the ecological damage done to the waters of the world. The Patriarch has led symposia in the Black Sea, the Aegean, the Adriatic, and the Baltic, traveled down the river Danube, and journeyed to Brazil, to the world's largest river, the mighty Amazon.
The Ecumenical Patriarch was the first leader of his stature in the Christian community to have made environmental issues, or caring for God's creation, a key issue. When some of his early pronouncements came out, I was quite aware of them because not too many senior religious leaders had said anything, about caring for God's creation up until that point.
On this day, the Patriarch is going to Greenland, the world's largest island and ground zero for the environmental crisis.
Dear Patriarch, welcome to Greenland.
Thank you. Dear brothers and sisters, this is the 7th symposium we have organized, and it is in many ways the most important. Not only because the danger of an avoidable environmental catastrophe is now more acute than ever, but also because we are gathering in a place whose awesome but fragile beauty is at once an inspiration and a warning to anyone who cares about the future of our planet.
The symposium is a traveling think tank. As the ship moves from port to port, the Patriarch fosters a lively atmosphere of open discussion among the participants.
The leadership of the Patriarch is, I think, genuinely important. If it wasn't for the continuity of His All Holiness's presence, this could spin off into trivia or spin off into tourism. So, I mean, there's a kind of core seriousness.
Je trouve que l'initiative prise par le patriarche Bartholomé est tout à fait remarquable. Elle marque une date qui va effectivement être suivie, à mon humble avis, de beaucoup de faits, d'importance. Parce qu'il faut que les dirigeants religieux se rendent compte qu'ils ont un rôle capital à jouer. Car il est bien évident qu'actuellement, les hommes ont la possibilité, par la science qu'ils ont acquise, de détruire la planète.
Having all of us on a ship, this is very important because the concept of all being passengers of one ship means that we have a common destiny, and no one can distance himself or herself or his nation from that common destiny.
The people that come on these symposia become infused and inspired, infused with knowledge and inspired to make a difference. The focus on different parts of the world and the learning that the symposium provides is wonderful food for the mind as well as for the soul.
If you wanted to take a message away, it's the rate of change that is more important than the actual numbers right now, because things are happening and accelerating.
As the symposium members exchange information and debate solutions, journalists disseminate their thoughts and concerns to the rest of the world. For centuries, Greenlanders have been generally overlooked by the outside world, isolated by distance and a harsh Arctic climate. Now, that's changing. Where the environment and global warming are concerned, Greenland is an early warning of what is to come for the rest of the world.
People outside Greenland should know that there are people living in Greenland, that we are part of the world, and the things that the people outside Greenland are doing, even if they are far away from us, it has implication on our lives here in Greenland. So everything is connected, and the connectedness is something that we just can't ignore.
The Inuit have survived in Greenland for nearly 5,000 years, living off the land, fishing and hunting seals, whales and polar bears. Today, the population is very small. Only 56,000 people in the entire country. Over the years, they've been discovered by the Western European world several times. First by Vikings led by Eric the Red in the year 1000 AD. Shortly afterward, Eric the Red's son, Leif Erikson, became the first to introduce the country to Christianity. The Patriarch paid homage to that history by performing a service at the ruins of a church built by Leif more than 1,000 years ago, the oldest Christian church in the Western Hemisphere. Seven centuries after the Vikings appeared, Lutheran missionaries arrived, followed in the 18th century by colonists from Denmark. Though Greenland remains under the protection of the Danes, it is now self-governed and faces issues so serious they threaten its very existence. First is global warming. 90% of Greenland's surface is topped by an ancient ice cap several meters thick, the world's largest. An ice cap that is now rapidly melting.
Flying over the ice cap, as we came in, you looked out and you think, somewhere in that is the water that's going to flood London or San Francisco or Singapore. Because it's currently on land and it won't be on land. And that's a meter of sea level rise. That's a water bomb.
The patriarch took his group to the Ilulissat Fjord, an area that dramatically illustrates that threat.
The Ilulissat Fjord is a glacier that drains about 7% of all the ice in Greenland, and it's accelerating 3 times faster today than it was 3 years ago. Really rapid, and it's oozing forth like toothpaste coming out of the massive glacier at a rate of about 15 kilometers a year. If you back that down, that's about 2 meters an hour. You can stand there and you can watch it go by.
Only a few years ago, this fjord was icebound much of the year. Not anymore.
This is now an ice-free harbor. These waters on which we are now going are warmer today than they were a decade ago.
The symposium members learned that even in the far north, the sea ice is thinning to a dangerous degree. The Inuits can no longer depend on a solid layer beneath them. Even in deep winter, it's increasingly risky to hunt or fish.
They are very isolated in those small places, and if they haven't collected food enough during the summertime, they might be forced to kill their dogs that are the ones who makes them able to make a living on the sea ice.
Despite the danger, most go out on the ice anyway. Not all of them return.
I tell them of my friend Mary, who is a very experienced hunter. She has hunted all of her life. She knows the land around us very well. At least she did until last winter, when she went hunting and didn't return. This is a very personal story, but this is what we live with every day.
In addition to the thinning sea ice, Greenlanders face an alarming rise in pollution. Ironically, it's not of their own making. This pollution comes from the outside world, delivered to them by the wind and the sea.
We can trace back, we're using the meteorological models, and then we can see easily when it's coming from Central Europe, from Western Europe, Eastern Europe, from Asia, from North America, from Central America. Depending on the wind, we see different combinations of these chemicals. It's quite a good fingerprint, because sometimes there are special combinations of metals together with the persistent organics, so you know that this wind has been over that territory.
The chief culprits are chemical contaminants, including pesticides, polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, industrial byproducts called persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, and heavy metals like lead and mercury.
These chemicals don't like to be in the water phase, So they evaporate easily from the water. And then we have a theory, it's the grasshopper theory, that they jump. They evaporate to the atmosphere, fall down with the rain, evaporate, fall down. So by that way they are brought to the north with the wind very fast.
The chemicals are first absorbed by tiny organisms like plankton. But as the plankton is eaten by fish, and the fish are eaten by seals, the toxic contaminants move up the food chain in higher doses, dramatically increasing toxicity.
From the plankton and up to the humans, we have a magnification factor about 1 million.
Dangerously high concentrations are now found in the Greenlanders' primary food sources.
In some populations here, especially those up north and on the east coast, heavily depending on the marine mammal food. They have some of the highest level ever measured in the world.
We have this whale meat. So you eat this raw.
What we see is that people who eat a lot of fish and sea mammals, they get higher values of these persistent organics and mercury. And we have seen that these are affecting the newborn babies. We have seen that mercury have been affecting the blood pressure and these fine motoric activities of newborns. And it looks like these are irreversible.
Symposium members also learned scientists have exposed a possible link between rising levels of PCBs and higher rates of diabetes.
It looks like there's a correlation with the amount of PCB you have in your body and the ability of you to get the diabetes. And that is very new research that have seen this correlation.
Even more frightening, scientists revealed a mysterious change in the sex ratio of new births.
Normally you give birth to 1.1 boy per every girl. We see that when the levels of PCBs are increasing in the mother, she stops giving birth to boys. So at some level there are 2 girls per every boy that are born.
The fetus is exposed to the same degree as the mother. And as the fetus is much more vulnerable to stresses, chemical stresses from the environment, I'd say that fetus and small children, that's the risk group.
It is not a serious problem if a few more girls are born than boys, but it is a symptom that something alarming is going on.
It's a very good barometer of what's happening on the globe. It takes the temperature on the globe, both on pollution, because it's the global system you pick up in the Arctic, the same as on climate.
The rest of the world will have to confront the full range of problems faced by Greenland sooner than it ever dreamed.
In a sense, we're probably 10 years behind where we should be. And time is absolutely of the essence.
As the planet gets warmer, the melt will speed up and weather patterns will become extremely unpredictable.
As the planet gets warmer, the air masses move more rapidly, the ocean masses move more rapidly, energy gets transported more rapidly. What's that going to mean? We're going to have times when we can walk up here and it'll be quite warm. 3 years later, for the same time, it'll be much colder. There will be years when hurricanes are terrible, and there'll be years where they're very, very mundane and not very, very strong. And there are reasons for that, but the biggest reason is the variability in the system goes with the warming.
All over the world, in areas far, far from Greenland, the potential effects of such unpredictable weather could be disastrous.
The southwest of the United States has always gone through periods of drought, sometimes 10, 20 years. But now it looks like they're going to have 30, 40, 50-year droughts, really long periods. So the ecological systems will have a much harder time recovering from that. Some parts will, some parts won't.
Because we believe in the possibility of saving the earth, we have traveled here in a spirit of penance, pilgrimage, and gratitude to our hosts.
For 7 days, the Patriarch and members of the symposium traded information and debated the issues, searching for an answer to the question uppermost on everyone's mind: what can be done?
Coming to the symposium, interacting with people from different parts of the world and different countries and different religions, this is a microcosm of what we need to do to solve this problem.
I think we need to find ways to inspire people and to create more community. We are not going to save the creation by the way we consume at home. We are not going to solve the creation by having a single relationship with the Lord. We're going to have to save the creation as a community, and we're going to have to create more community to do that.
The next big question is one many hardly dared ask. Is there still time?
The truth is we don't know. It may be too late. On the other hand, you have to take a kind of practical decision on this. If we conclude that it's too late and do nothing, then it's certainly too late. So I always say to myself, when that kind of pessimism fungus grows in your brain, that's a heresy, that anyone who cares about this has to operate as if we still have a good chance, because otherwise fear paralyzes you.
We've got a lot of work to do, but in some ways that means we've got a lot of work to do. Isn't that great that we can work together and make a difference, that we can be a part of really making sure that the most catastrophic consequences of global warming don't take place?
We are afraid if you don't, not only would the animals around us disappear, we might as well, as human beings, disappear.
Some say that it's too late, but I still have a hope, and we should do it now together.
Whatever is done, the Patriarch was clear. It needs to be done now.
As Orthodox Christians, we use the Greek keros to describe a moment in time which has eternal significance. For the human race as a whole, there is now a keros, a decisive time in our relationship with God's creation. We will either act in time to protect life on earth from the worst consequences of human folly, or we will fail to act. May God grant us the wisdom to act in time.
The concept of kieros struck a strong chord with many members of the symposium.
It has started a new way of thinking, I would say. And I think it's extremely important that the churches take co-responsibility together with scientists. That's the only way we can go forward.
I have used that framing a half dozen times. I used it the last time with the U.S. Congress, with a bunch of senators, and I said I was being asked, what should we do? How do we avoid the problem that the perfect is the enemy of the good, which is the conventional way of political thinking? And I said, well, this is a moment of kairos. We should not be thinking of the perfect and the good, we need to be thinking of the necessary. And we must do the necessary. And I think that particular insight from the Patriarch was probably for me the most important part of the trip to Greenland.
As the symposium ship cut through the waters of the Arctic Ocean off the coast of Greenland, the patriarch gathered religious leaders from across the globe for a silent prayer. They stood on deck, each in his or her own way, sending a prayer to the infinite.
It brought us into a space of common purpose, common care, and the silence of the land could really speak, and the silence of the icebergs in particular were absolutely marvelous.
The feeling was so strong. I have some tears because, yes.
You could feel the power. You could feel the peace, and it was wonderful to have the young children there. I felt extremely connected.
I think prayer is very powerful. It's a means of not just communicating with God, but also to ask for help, to give us the strength, the ability that we may do something to change things.
It was so powerful, those 2 minutes that they were standing there together, that I wished it had lasted a lot longer.
I think that our ancestors was right when they are saying and telling us the respect for nature is the most important thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't survive.
I want my grandchildren to see this beautiful country with snow and ice and everything.
We have to do something. We can do something. We can change the course of the way that we are destroying the nature now. We can change that.